Did you know a seemingly innocuous pill might be altering your attraction to others? Could a medication designed for freedom actually be a form of societal control? Is it possible that a pill lauded for women's empowerment also contributes to declining birth rates? Has this pill fractured the family unit entirely and made us all a little more dependent? A story begins in the mid-20th century. A tiny pill designed to revolutionize women's lives emerged. But did this liberation come at a hidden cost? Did it truly empower women, or did it initiate an era of societal control masked as freedom? Initially, the first oral contraceptive was approved, and millions of women embraced this newfound control over their bodies. But it's essential to remember that the roots of this movement are tangled with the controversial ideology of eugenics. Margaret Sanger, a pioneer of women's reproductive rights, also believed in improving human genetics through selective reproduction. In her view, certain groups were unfit and should have limited reproductive rights to purify the human race. This included African Americans, immigrants, and people with disabilities. Sanger's vision was deeply rooted in controlling populations deemed inferior. With the rapid increase in women taking the pill from 30% of married women in 1960 to 75% today, we must examine what this pill truly does to the body and the potential consequences. Hormonal contraceptives are primarily composed of synthetic hormones, distinct from the bioidentical hormones naturally produced by your body. These synthetic substances disrupt your natural hormonal balance, potentially leading to long-term health consequences. Research has linked long-term use of birth control to an increased risk of blood clots, certain cancers, and autoimmune disorders. Moreover, these synthetic hormones can alter the body's stress and inflammation responses, affecting emotional stability and physical well-being. At its core, hormonal birth control prevents pregnancy by interfering with the body's natural reproductive processes. Common forms of birth control, such as pills, patches, injections, and IUDs, deliver synthetic hormones, estrogen and progesterone or progestin, that mimic the natural hormones in your body but disrupt your reproductive cycle. These hormones achieve three primary goals: preventing ovulation, altering cervical mucus, and changing the uterine lining. Ovulation is halted by inducing these synthetic hormones, tricking the body into thinking it's already pregnant. This prevents the surge of follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH, that would normally cause ovulation. Progestin thickens the cervical mucus, creating a physical barrier that makes it harder for sperm to reach an egg. Normally, cervical mucus becomes thin and slippery around ovulation, aiding sperm travel. Additionally, hormonal birth control thins the uterine lining, making it less receptive to implantation. Under normal circumstances, this lining thickens each month in preparation for potential pregnancy, but hormonal birth control prevents this. This shutdown of the menstrual cycle can cause significant changes over time. By halting ovulation, women lose the cyclical hormone fluctuations that contribute to not only fertility, but also mood and overall energy levels. Synthetic hormones flatten out the natural peaks and valleys in a woman's hormonal landscape. The continuous thinning of the uterine lining can lead to long-term effects, such as amenorrhea or negatively impacting fertility after birth control use. In addition, birth control can interfere with bone density, as estrogen plays a key role in maintaining healthy bones. Hormonal contraceptives have also been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, including blood clots, heart attacks, and strokes. They can also alter the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal (HPA) axis, which controls the body's stress response. This can lead to altered emotional regulation, higher levels of anxiety or depression, and difficulty managing stress. Chronic use can have long-term consequences. While fertility may return for many women, it can take a long time or potentially impact their ability to get pregnant altogether. And while some people believe that birth control decreases the risk of cancer like ovarian or endometrial cancer, they are also associated with an increased risk of breast cancer and cervical cancer. Furthermore, weight gain, fluid retention, and increased inflammation are common side effects. Birth control can alter insulin sensitivity and body fat distribution, leading to metabolic changes. Synthetic hormones can also contribute to a chronically inflamed state, increasing the risk for cardiovascular disease. Perhaps one of the most intriguing and lesser-known impacts of birth control is its effect on sexual attraction and mate selection, which ties directly into its impact on mental health and psychological functioning. Hormonal birth control has been associated with mood changes, and some studies have shown an increased correlation between birth control and anxiety and depression. Synthetic hormones alter serotonin and other neurotransmitters in the brain, which can influence mood regulation, placing women on birth control at a higher risk for mood disorders, particularly those with a pre-existing history of depression. More alarmingly, birth control doesn't just change your mood or your body, it shifts your mindset. The type of partner you are attracted to can change completely. When a woman is not on birth control, her preferences for a mate can fluctuate throughout her hormonal cycle. During the fertile phase around ovulation, women tend to prefer men with more traditionally masculine features, such as strong jawlines, deeper voices, and dominant or confident behavior. This preference is thought to be driven by evolutionary biology, as women subconsciously seek traits that imply good genetics during their most fertile days. However, hormonal birth control overrides this natural fluctuation. Because the pill keeps hormonal levels consistent and prevents ovulation, it flattens out these fluctuations, impacting overall attraction. Women on the pill tend to prefer men with more feminine traits, who are perceived as more nurturing, supportive, and stable. This shift can lead to women making mate choices that they may not otherwise make if they weren't on birth control. One study conducted in 2010 found that women on the pill tend to prefer men with softer facial features and lower testosterone levels. This is in stark contrast to women who are not on birth control, who are much more likely to prefer more masculine features, especially during ovulation. This study also suggested that women who select partners on birth control may find themselves less physically attracted to their partner after they stop taking the pill, as their natural mate preferences return after they stop taking it and their hormonal cycle resumes. A 2014 study looked at relationship satisfaction regarding newlywed couples where women had either been on or off birth control when they met their partners. The study tracked these couples over time to assess whether birth control had any impact on their attraction to their partner or not. The findings were striking. Women who met their partners on birth control were much more likely to report less attraction after coming off the birth control pill. Conversely, women who were not on the pill when they met their partner tended to report higher levels of physical attraction throughout the entire relationship. This raises a crucial question about the impact of birth control on relationship dynamics. If women are selecting partners while on the pill, what happens when they stop taking it and their preferences shift? These changes in attraction could lead to overall relationship dissatisfaction or even divorce. Beyond individual relationships, birth control has fueled a cultural revolution, altering the very fabric of society. With the rise of the feminist movement in the 1960s, the pill became a symbol of liberation. Feminists pushed the narrative that women could have it all: career, independence, and control over their reproductive choices. While women entered the workforce in record numbers, this shift had far-reaching consequences. From 1960 to today, the percentage of women in the workforce rose dramatically. But as women became breadwinners, men began to leave the workforce, causing a shift in gender dynamics. Children, once raised primarily at home, were increasingly cared for by the state. Daycare programs and school systems took over the role once held by families. Many argue that the shift of child-rearing responsibilities from parents to the state was fueled by the feminist push for liberation, made possible by birth control. Feminism told women they could do it all, but at what cost? Men were increasingly sidelined, facing growing shame and blame, fueled by feminist rhetoric that often painted men as obstacles to women's success rather than their partners. The feminist narrative shifted from equality to demonizing masculinity. Birth control gave women control over their fertility, but in return changed family dynamics and gender roles in a way that has altered the foundation of Western society. This has led to fewer marriages, lower birth rates, and an increased dependency on the state, contributing to a rise in divorce rates. Fertility rates around the world have been declining sharply, with infertility rates now below the replacement level, particularly in Western societies. Some experts point to hormonal birth control as a contributing factor, disconnecting women from their natural fertility cycles, pushing the narrative that children are a burden and that marriage is meaningless. The pill has not only changed how much we think about reproduction, but how often we even reproduce. Birth control has played a role in pushing women into the workforce. The idea that a woman's value is tied to her productivity rather than her family has its roots in this shift towards independent women, which some argue has fractured the family unit and eroded traditional values. A rise of feminism, with the simultaneous decline in traditional religion, has contributed to a shift in societal values, replacing old norms focused on community with new ones focused on the individual. Previously, people were expected to prioritize the well-being of their families and communities over their own individual desires. Modern values now promote personal autonomy, self-actualization, and freedom of choice, even at the expense of society thriving as a whole. The focus has shifted to personal empowerment, where pursuing one's own goals and desires is celebrated as a key aspect of self-worth and success. However, empowerment is subjective and can be a form of manipulation. One of the most visible shifts in our society now is the construct of gender roles. Feminism has challenged traditional roles, arguing for equality in every arena of life, ignoring biological strengths and differences. Today, gender roles have become more fluid. Women are encouraged to pursue careers, leadership positions, and financial independence, while men are increasingly expected to share in child-rearing and domestic responsibilities. Concepts of gender fluidity and non-binary identities have gained prominence, further challenging traditional roles identified by biological sex. Marriage has been the cornerstone of traditional values, but we can see it dissolving rapidly. Previously, marriage was seen as a sacred institution, a lifelong commitment essential for societal stability and the foundation for raising children. However, with the rise of feminism and the decline of religion, marriage is no longer seen as an essential milestone. Feminism has promoted the idea that women do not need marriage for financial security, emphasizing a focus on careers and personal growth before or instead of starting a family. Divorce rates have continued to climb as people focus on individual happiness, neglecting traditional family values. Traditional values upheld strict guidelines around sexual behavior, often confining it to marriage and emphasizing chastity, especially for women. Sexuality was framed within moral and religious boundaries, and reproduction was seen as the central experience around having sex. With the invention of birth control and feminist rhetoric towards reproductive rights, these traditional beliefs around sexuality have been largely replaced with a concept of sexual freedom. Feminism has championed the idea that women, like men, should have the freedom to engage in sexual relationships on their own terms, without pressure or responsibility. Feminist movements have pushed for abortion rights and further contraceptive access, further weakening the link between sex and traditional family values. These changes have redefined sexual norms in the context of autonomy, liberation, and personal choice. Traditional values often emphasized self-sacrifice for the greater good, whether for family, community, or spiritual well-being. Enduring hardship in service of duty was seen as virtuous. Today, the focus has shifted towards self-realization and personal happiness. The rise of self-care culture, therapy, and individual empowerment has shifted societal values into focusing on the person versus the greater good. And with this, the cultural landscape continues to evolve, creating tension between these new rules and values with the remnants of traditional ones. The pill was sold as a form of freedom, yet has made us completely reliant on the state, replacing men. In examining the influence of a tiny pill, we uncover manipulation, societal control, and unintended consequences for women. What felt like liberation may now feel like chains, while men could see in the same pill the explanation for all relationship distress, divorce, and gender-related dynamics. Perhaps a freedom founded on the manipulation of biology, the distortion of attraction, and the disruption of fundamental societal structures is no freedom at all.